What sets higher skilled players apart is their ability to react quickly when things get hectic. Today I want to show you exactly how to start building better reflexes in gunfights so that you can play more aggressively. There are a ton of high-speed decisions that you may not notice when you watch other Warzone creators, so I'm really going to break down some of these. I want to show you how I have built habitual positioning and gun skill techniques that make outplaying enemies so much easier. I'm also going to reference a few things from my escape artist video and my most recent aim guide, so if you missed those two, check out the links for both of those in the description below. Do me a favor, if you learned something in today's breakdown, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're serious about Warzone improvement. I always get asked this in the video comments, so I like to include these in videos just like this, but I play on a 6.6 horizontal and vertical sensitivity with a 0.85 ADS sensitivity multiplier. I'm on dynamic with a 1.0 slope, and my dead zones are left stick min 1 to max 65 and right stick min 3 to max 99. Now your dead zones may change based on your controller, but what I want to focus on today is about control and building the game sense into both our movement and our aim mechanic together. And one of the first things that I really want to talk about is our positioning when we're pushing a gunfight. When we're trying to get information, we want to use both our horizontal and our vertical movement to gain information. Once we have information on a particular player, we then need to make a decision on how we're going to place our crosshairs. Our centering is what we always want to talk about, is where are we looking when we're engaging an enemy, and the most important thing is which weapon are we pushing in the fight. And one of the most basic things that doesn't always translate when you're watching somebody play this game at high speed is what is their thought process while they're taking on these fights. We want to be using the correct placement of our crosshairs, which is pre-aiming doorways, gathering that intel as we're moving towards a fight, and then consciously thinking about the weapon that we have. I'm always thinking about this when I'm pushing into certain POIs as, do I have a short range out? Am I going to engage the long range? And I'm going to show you here how you can switch and how to do that properly. And if you notice in this clip here, I push the room with my short range weapon, but once I gather the information and see the distance for the target, I decide to switch to my long range engagement. What this does is if I get pushed by a second enemy after I knock the first, I'm able to switch to that weapon and then engage a second player if it's necessary. I'm also using my movement and jumping in a vertical fashion and then sliding out and aiming for their head. And that is something that is going to take lots and lots of practice to do. But by using the first weapon to knock, I now have the ability to provide security for enemy number 2 or 3 while I still have 35 rounds in the magazine. So when we go to push the next enemy on this team, we will swing out using our short range and shouldering into cover, and then immediately switching to that long range because it's the best weapon for this fight, aiming center mass while strafing with the left stick. That activates that rotational aim assist like we saw in our aim assist guide, and I definitely recommend you guys take advantage of that. I go in great detail on how to activate that in various scenarios, how to use it with slides, while sniping, and just in general while you are in your average gunfights. One of the most important things that I really want to talk about is the ability to move after each and every kill. It is an unnatural thing to continue to do this and can be very risky. But what happens is you need to be ready for that second, third, or fourth player. We also want to hold what I call hot zones. And when you have an enemy team that is now trying to avenge you after you just killed one of their teammates, the natural habit is they're going to push you. So holding that doorway and making sure that you have a ready aim on the direction in which they're likely to push, but you also need to be aware of how many angles. People generally just don't do is they don't switch their weapons in the middle of a firefight. So you can apply pressure with one weapon and then switch to your secondary weapon. Shouldering in and out of cover is extremely powerful for both information purposes and lining up shots. And in this scenario here, I moved out of their range of sight. I cannot see them and they cannot see me. This small step over to the right gave me the ability to reload my weapon, and it baits them, which we talk about in the escape artist video. And as they see that I'm moving out of the picture, the enemy gets motivated to push into the room, and I'm pre-aiming and ready to take them out. As soon as I'm done, I'm changing my elevation, changing my position and my weapon, and ready to take the next fight. Whenever you're pushing somebody and you have a general idea of where they're at, you still need to be aware of your peripheral vision. So I will always check when I'm pushing an enemy as best as I can to make sure that I am clearing those corners and being ready to back off as soon as the fight's over, or maybe in the middle if it's not going the way that I want. The next thing you should be doing is thinking about how far you back off into that area. If you're backing off way too far, you're giving away free kills either to your teammates, or you're letting the lobby continue to diminish with all of those longer resets. So learning how much control you have in a fight and how much control you have in a game is coming down to instincts. And if you watch any of my game sense videos, I talk a lot about using the proper pacing and momentum, but also knowing how to exercise the stop mechanic. And when you have been completely broken and you have an empty magazine, rotating back and using the blind from our escape videos is a fantastic way to reset your gunfight, but then you are re-engaging seconds after you are ready. You're listening to your audio cues, and then you are baiting that and challing by switching that weapon. Once again, we are using the ranged weapon for its advantage. It is very natural to be moving with your faster of the two weapons. In fact, you'll spend a majority of your time with either your dedicated melee or your short range weapon out as you clear buildings, and you should. But in order to get those free kills, catching people in the open, you need to build the habit of switching to your long range weapon immediately and then taking advantage of the recoil control along with your strafing mechanic. You always need to know when you're going to say no. We call this the nope moment. If you are building the instinct of when you're not going to be able to win the fight because you don't have the appropriate accuracy or position or weapon for that fight, you need to instinctually know when to pull back off that stick. This is the part that I think is extremely powerful to learn and master, and this comes from, which are the 3 tactics that I talk about in my escape artist video, which is the bait, the blind, and the bail. We bait our enemies and then we pull backwards into cover, which is a blind, and that draws them to push. Then you can hold your hot zones, which are your doorways. And when you do that, you need to limit the areas that they are going to come from, and you need to know in which direction they're likely going to come. If they're not moving in a timely fashion, we're going to react to the audio cue, and then we're not going to move so close that we can't react. And we need to have the ability to react when we're caught off guard. So when you hear the audio cue, they are ready to push and they have not shown up. They're not coming this way. And you need to start to kind of talk to yourself as you're in that gunfight, and then start to use what I call reactionary aim, which is where you're getting hit and you're not looking at that character, which you need to use your movement and your recentering to outplay your enemy. We're going to talk a lot about your directional fire indicator, which is this 360-degree compass around your crosshairs, the wide angle compass with the blue or red to indicate what direction you're being fired from. So this is in the 1 o'clock position. That's where the enemy is. But before, when I'm taking first damage, it's in the 2 or 3 o'clock position. So I'm consciously thinking about the 2 possible avenues plus the door behind me. And in order to get out of that situation, what I'm doing is I'm moving and slide canceling at their kneecaps and then strafing away from them in a left motion. And what that does is forces them to also swing left. I break their aim assist, and then I am shooting them as a reaction. And that is how you turn on an enemy that pushes you and you're not looking. We're always going to check our minimap in Resurgence to get information after we kill. What we always want to be thinking about is different ways to engage. We want to be using our equipment to flush them out and to apply pressure. And then once we do apply our pressure, we're going to look at different ways to get into that building. What a lot of people will do is they will give enemies that are clustered together valuable time to lock down a building. And what you need to do is what I like to call isolate and eliminate. So we're going to push up towards the top. We're ready to engage the window in this scenario by peeking up towards this vent. And once we hit the top of the vent, we're going to use our lethal and pre-aim the window so that as soon as we peek, we can do what I call flushing. As soon as we go to flush, we realize that they are outside the window. As soon as I knock enemy 1 with the grenade, I am immediately going to engage the Ninja Turtle. Now he's sliding towards me and falling down the roof because he's not canceling his slide. So he goes down and there's this awkward falling. So I'm immediately chasing towards him, but I'm looking at the barrels so that when I drop, I have an extra piece of cover. And I'm rotating towards that and activating the aim assist. Again, changing our position and making sure that we are reloading the weapon, then replating while repositioning. Reload, replate, and reposition. It is so important to continue to do that so that as you get new intel, you're ready for the next fight. We always want to look about tracking. When you see an enemy disappear, we want to predict which way they're going to go. And I have a few examples here on just general range of motion. If you want to advance as a player, you need to start to see these visualizations where enemies are running through, and instead of trying to push up super close to them, stay back and give yourself long lines of sight and watch as they trace. Now, I actually talk about in the Escape Artist video how to avoid this and how to execute blinds effectively to outsmart your enemy, but the average player is not going to build this into their movement, and the more you trace, the more you will find enemies that you would not have seen if you had pushed up prematurely. Another piece of information that I gained with patience here is I can clearly see 2 enemies. There is a brown skin character and a black skin character. So I know that I've knocked one and I'm looking for the second enemy. The second enemy has jumped down and is not there. So it gives me easy access to counting because from a wider range, I have more ability to control that gunfight through some simple distance tactics while using safe cover to knock 1, 2, or more enemies. I talk about surface sounds a lot, and I know that there will be people in the comments talking about the sound quality of this game. I'm right there with you. I firmly believe that there are some serious issues with the game's audio, its transmission through multiple levels, and there are still people that I don't hear. But that's not always, and you will hear throughout the course of this video. We're also going to talk about some of the surface sounds and how to help isolate where an enemy is. If I'm clearing a zone and I'm walking up the steps and I freeze my position, I know that the concrete in this room is the tapping sound that I'm hearing. And if they're not downstairs, then they're right behind this door. So I'm using the element of surprise by crouch walking, which is something you can do. You don't always have to run, pre-aiming, pre-firing, and then tracking by using my plugging technique of letting go of my ADS and getting back on target the fastest. One of the harder things to do is decide whether or not you're going to be able to complete the revive, but you need to be ready for their reaction. And when players jump straight down, sliding through them and then doing a 180 or a 90 degree is incredibly powerful. It gives you the ability to, again, activate that rotational aim assist, and then you can jump, you can slide and reverse your aim, and then pre-aim where they are. It is going to take a lot of practice to execute this, but you will be surprised how easy it is once you start moving that left stick more in your gunfights. Especially if you're on controller, you will see how much easier this actually is once you start activating rotational aim assist with your left stick. If you're standing still and you're just trying to shoot this guy as he drops down, you're not going to have the advantage, and if he's swinging and sliding around, he will have the advantage. So it will come down to timing and your ability to maximize the mechanics of this game. Changing position is so important, and if you don't do this, you are going to set yourself up for consistent 1 kill, one death scenario over and over. So make sure that you are changing that spot, gives you time to reset that gunfight. When you're flying back in, it is really, really easy to get caught with crappy loot. So you need to know exactly what to do as soon as you find that crappy loot and make plays that make sense. And if you find something like a rocket launcher, you get one shot, and if you don't get it right, you're definitely going to die. Pre-aim those areas that you just got pushed from, and you can absolutely catch somebody off guard who thinks you just have a pistol. That can absolutely change the tables, because if they pushed you with a loadout or any of these goodies like you see here, you can completely reset yourself up, especially if you're aggressive. Awareness is so important when it comes to your gun skill. And when you see things like players that are absolutely unaware of their surroundings, you need to take advantage of that. So in this fight here, we had someone buying a loadout. We were pushed by the Terminator skin. We slid upstairs, and the guy from the window that is trying to hold our team is still completely unaware that I am at his side. So I'm going to take him out, continue to roll through that house while reloading and anticipating that push. While holding doorways, I know there's two more because I was looking at the radar just a few moments ago. I'm going to get pushed by both. I'm going to knock one, switch to my SMG, exit the building, replate before I mantle, and then fly upstairs to once again meet Mr. Terminator. These types of tactics are how you outplay multiple enemies at a time with just simple environmental changes and maximizing your cover, your pre-aiming, your pre-firing, and we're taking full advantage of the game's mechanics. Another big thing that I want to talk about is called closing the gap. And a lot of times people will focus way too much on their head glitch and not about their distance to the enemy. This tactic is extremely important when you're dealing with enemies from multiple angles, and that can be useful in hundreds of scenarios. So in this scenario here, I have a teammate down on the roof line. I have a guy on top of water tower and an enemy on the other side of this skylight over here. Instead of trying to engage him over the peak of this, which is very awkward, and then overexpose myself to the water tower, I decide to close the gap. So I use the blind to get myself close to cover, and this gives me the ability to fight him whether or not he's looking at me, but I also have a defensive position that I could continue my slide up until this area and go prone if he has a sniper rifle or a long-range weapon to engage me. He's not looking. I'm able to slide cancel, use my tracking ability to wipe him out, and then reset the gunfight farther back. I'm still aware of the water tower guy, but what I have right now is the GPR 91 and the C9. I don't have a great weapon to take out the water tower, but I come across this Kar 98. You can temporarily drop your meta loadout for a weapon that works, whether it's another enemy loadout or if it's a sniper rifle you find on the ground. I do this often when I'm not playing with a sniper rifle. I will pay attention to ones close by, and should I need to engage a target just like this, I have the ability to put some shots on them. I'm also aware of the precision airstreak, so now that we don't have the path, I'm falling backwards, kind of guessing that it's coming from either water tower or the top of prison just in front of it. So I'm holding back. I'm making sure that I'm trying to get successful shots on the water tower, and then I'm going to start my res. What I'm also conscious of where my head is while I'm performing that res, and I'm listening to the audio cue of this zip. I get a full audio cue that they're zipping up. I release the stem and pre-aim the top of that zip while activating rotational aim assist so that I can knock him. Thirsting, once again going prone, staying safe from the water tower, and remembering where my GPR is. I'm going to reload, and then I'm going to use the Kar 98 for the exact reason that I picked it up, and I'm going to pre-aim and knock him. Now that I've successfully knocked him, I'm going to drop that base Kar 98, pick back up my GPR, and walk with my freshly res teammate to the other side of the prison. I get the confirmation that the water tower has bled out, so now I'm listening to the footsteps below, and One of the things that I think a lot of players don't really think about is how far they overreach from roof lines. You always need to be ready to pull back on that stick and hit your slide mechanic, just like we were talking about earlier in the video. You can get thirsty and choke out those fly-ins, but you need to be ready for somebody new that is hitting you from the ground or from the water tower again. Using the weapons that you have is so important. Again, we're moving away from the directional fire indicator, but I'm also trusting these tracer rounds, and I predict that they're going to chase the same window that I came in through, and I'm accurate. I'm using this as a portable cover so that I know exactly where they are, and I'm waiting for them to stop firing for just a second and put that gun in the air to push me. I'm also able to complete my plating animation while weaving and getting information, and then switching from my hip fire to my strafe and finishing off the enemy. Once again, I'm listening to audio cues and I hear the concrete of them running up the steps and sliding towards the loadout. This is a combination of audio cues and just some game sense mechanics that I'm hearing players push towards boxes. I'm also aware of the fact that I am rezzing the only teammate that is alive besides me. So if I don't defend this position, I'm going to get wiped by this guy. Never let the res dictate whether or not you defend. Always release prematurely, take care of the danger, and then resume the res. Not only that, taking care of another enemy player during that process and completing the res lowers the timer for your teammates in Resurgence. The nope moment is in effect at all times. You always need to be ready to say no to a bad fight and continuously get away from that and build the mindset into your everyday game so that you are constantly thinking about, is this safe to continue? And if you're not asking yourself that and you don't have the right weapon and you don't have the right plates, you're going to continue to make aggressive plays that are going to get you killed, which is a part of the game. But the idea is to improve the speed in which you make these decisions and start to give yourself the best possible outcomes. So when you start taking no intel fights, which is something that I have worked on for a long time, you have to be ready to stop. And one of the things that you need to know is when you are pushing somebody that has a better position than you, you cannot continue that push. You're going to die every single time. So in this scenario here, this guy has an amazing heady. This is one of the more powerful headies that you can have. I only see his head, which sounds like it would be very easy to hit, but it's a very small target and he can see my entire body. So he has multiple successful shots on me. I'm moving away from the danger, which gives me time to reposition and think about how you're going to address this. Always have an exit strategy. It is really, really important that you continually think about this whenever you are peeking enemies. Which way are you going to go when it goes south? Because sometimes you're not going to hit your shots, and sometimes you're just not going to have the right weapon or the right angle, and you need to know when you're outplayed, and changing your position gives you the ability to reset the gunfight, but then use a different angle. Or knowing your map and the way to take your route is the best way to set that up. Taking the long way around to reposition on that enemy and pre-aiming the side helps give you information to see where they have gone. And sometimes they do the exact same thing. And that's where you have to use the process of elimination. If you don't have a visual and you don't have UAV, is play those sides. Always play the side. Don't re-engage the same facing and take your elevation or drop from your elevation to give yourself new information. If they were not visible on the lower floor, there's no basement. So they either went over to Grandma's house or they pushed up to the steps. And what I find is my instincts were correct. They have moved up to the top. They didn't hear me zip, and I rotated to clear my sector, and then I was able to take them out. Now, I didn't have the intel until now to back off, and I see one, and I had one farther off. So once again, I'm engaging that nope moment and getting away the best possible way. I initiated a bait by shooting, realized I didn't have plates, went through with my blind, and then bailed to the bottom level. This gives me time to reset my ammunition, my plates, and then hold anybody who pushes me Activating that side shift, I've now got information on the roof. I have more arrows above, and I'm able to maximize my cover as best I can. Target transitioning is something that we talk about quite a bit in some of my videos. And if you noticed here, we have an enemy almost completely taken out as he slides into cover here. But we have presumably his teammate dropping in from the skylight who wants to avenge that gunfire. I have to use self-control, let go of this gunfight. If I continue to pursue this guy to my right here is absolutely going to take me out. So I have to stop firing, maximize the ammo that I have left in the magazine, and then move to cover and engage. Now, once again, I have enemy number 3 up in this area here. I don't have any intel on what happens from the player on the left, but if you notice really close, I see him go through the gap, which tells me that I am once again outnumbered by there's at least 3 enemies. And if you look also at the mini-map, I have a nice flying V of his teammates. So we're able to knock one, but we're not greedy. We're switching to the next weapon, and we are getting out of this fight. I see 2 teammates dead, and 4th teammate is not in the building. He's also dead. This is not a fight I want to stick around for. I'm going to swing outward and hit my bail strategy, and this time I'm going to go towards the showers. I'm getting footsteps in the showers, so it's not a smart play. Once again, I have 3 teammates out of the game. I'm going to continue to plate, back off, and I'm going to get out of that situation as quick as possible, and I'm going to zip up. I'm going to hit my stim, which is a valuable piece of equipment to keep you alive when you have only a sliver of health left, and we're going to notice our fly-in this scenario here. So we're going to use our stim, and we're going to take enemy out, but we also see a dot on the minimap, which is confirmed by the head over here on the left-hand side. So we're using our awareness, we're getting that knock, and we're getting off the roof because we still don't have plates. Now, getting that knock and getting down to the ground, we need to get this number 2 down to a 0 in case we die because resurgence is disabled. We've redeployed 2 of the 3 teammates, and we found a safe place for cover, and we are getting our plates in. Changing positions and preparing your hot zone pre-aims is very difficult to learn. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get away from multiple enemies, and I think that one of the things that people just refuse to do is to shoot and move, and that is very simply when you kill somebody, you need to move away from the same site. And that sometimes means through the gas. Once you move, you're going to get information. You're going to get footstep audio. You're going to get kill pings. You're going to get weapon pings. And as you get that new information, you need to be readily checking that radar and reacting to the audio cues that you get. You know, seeing this guy here in the window, if I had been downstairs, I would not have known where he was, but just simply wrapping up the steps and coming inside, I can see that he's now down, and I can push down on top of him by using the unexpected. I'm still getting footstep audio even after that second kill. Didn't see the guy in the room at all. He blended in completely through the mantle. I had 29 in the mag, and I did not reload after that gunfight because I was waiting for those footsteps to push. Mantled and was leapfrogged by this guy, immediately hip fired, reloaded, and tucked into the corner to plate 1 and 2, and then stayed in my position and waited for the 4th enemy. It is all about getting that information. If you stay in that corner and you are in the bottom of that house for the entirety, eventually those 4 players would be coming down the steps through the window in a synchronized fashion and wiping you from that, which is where flank fighting or pinching is such an overpowered strategy in this game because you have to maximize information and you need to be able to surprise enemy players. And moving that location over and over again gives you the ability to find people that you don't know where they're at. And if you are using your movement to your advantage, it's not just about breaking their aim, it's always about confusing their senses. And when you have new information on where they're at and then you mix it with map knowledge, you can outsmart them because they don't know which angle to shoot from. When you're pushing a stairway, you can slide in an ego chow to take care of any remaining damage that your teammate is not finished. And it can be extremely alarming for them to suddenly fight two when they thought they were just fighting one. One of the other things that I think is very, very common for players not to practice is pre-firing. When you have direct information about an enemy player's whereabouts and you are pushing them, you should be pre-aiming and pre-firing as you enter an area. That gives you the advantage because they're listening to your footsteps and trying to time when you walk through the room, and it becomes very hard for them to make a decision when they are taking damage and getting red screened from your immediate damage. So I mentioned earlier about tracking a target through a straight line. You can usually predict the direction that a player is going, and the follow through is shooting on the other side of the cover if they're shooting or if they're running away from your original gunfire. So by moving your crosshair over early and then pre-firing, you can get perfectly timed finishing shots on an enemy that was trying to run away. And you can do that quite easily every time they move around their cover. Instead of trying to waste bullets shooting through every surface, which some of them you can take out some very unsuspecting enemies that thought they were safe on their getaway. Now, earlier we talked about sliding in towards players to break their camera, but once again, I want to reiterate, sliding back is still extremely powerful as long as it's done in a lateral motion. So you can continue to swing and slide away from your enemy, activating the rotational aim assist and getting subsequent shots along with them. In this situation here, we have 3 enemy teams, one above us, one to the left, and one to the right outside the tunnel. We're using the mini-map, and we're watching for the best possible play. We have a team above us, so our teammates are scrambling to take control of the ladder and prematurely pushing out, which is unfortunate. But what I like to do is get control of the situation and know as much information about the circle as possible. Now, I know I need to clear circle left, and I want the elevation to clear of the enemies above us, but I also know we're only fighting 2 solos. So I'm going to push out and get that information. I have one visual in the shed, and I had a confirmation of that before on the minimap. I see the rifle, and instead of pre-firing and giving away my position at the tree by shooting the shack, I'm waiting for left confirmation. Now I got that from my teammate. As he gets knocked, I get the PA notification. I'm able to take out our enemy number 1. And instead of trying to res with that precision airstreak, I'm jumping back down into cover and I'm doing that shouldering tactic to get that information. I know they were in there before. I'm getting a danger ping from the wall and some comms that they've moved out of the shed, but I don't exactly know where. If I were them, I'd be at the wall trying to head glitch me. Looking left and right, I finally got a glimpse of them through the smoke as they pushed out towards me, and I'm once again not reloading, not focused on the revive. I am activating rotational aim assist through small side steps through the left and right mechanic of that movement stick to knock that enemy. If you work on reactionary strategies like this, you will see major improvements in your gunfights. I promise you that it is not all about the meta weapon that you use. While it's important, if you're not using the correct weapon at the correct time, if you're not timing your reloads, if you're engaging aggressively with no backup plan and no escape plan, you're going to find yourself in the losing circle too often. If you learned something in today's video, or if you just want to let me know how I'm doing, I love comments, I love feedback. Let me know what you want to see. This video is a result of constant comments from people asking about how to address different strategies. This is the best way that I could come up with it, is find clips of specific scenarios and show you exactly in great detail what I'm thinking and what I'm doing in each and every fight. Thanks for watching, guys. Keep building, keep adapting. Sitrep out.